Here we are again from the blue corner. What can I say? This week is a special week. It's my birthday, come Saturday. And not only that, the Combat Sports Authority of New South Wales have finally opened the doors again. So I'm hoping that in the coming weeks, or at least a month, we will start to see a little bit of action. But yeah, so for people that are just tuning in for the first time, make sure you subscribe, like, comment, share, all that good stuff, where I know the rest of you guys are doing that anyway. And yeah, let's get on with it. Today I have a special guest. He completed the Wimp to Warrior series, but he's done a lot more than that. He's ventured on the mountains, obviously did quite a few Ironmen. I'm actually shocked with the number. And I don't even know if I'm allowed to bring up age because they usually say that's a bad thing to do. But his fight name was Fossil, which is also his stake to fame when it comes to the Wimp to Warrior series, as he was the oldest competitor. And he's actually written a book which is called Do Not Go Gentle, which I do suggest people go check out. But yeah, I'm talking about Glenn Dobson, and he is sitting beside me, and I will say welcome. And how has 2020 been treating you?
G'day. 2020 has been interesting. Obviously, it's been a really challenging year for many people. For ourselves, I hate to say it, I've gone from cage fighter to grey nomad. So instead of been training for cage fighting, I've been bought a caravan and a truck and been touring this beautiful state. So yeah, 2020's been interesting.
So when you say you bought a caravan, have you actually been able to put that to good use? Because, you know, with all the border restrictions at the moment, or have you just been kind of like hovering around New South Wales?
Just around New South Wales. We went round New South Wales, spent 3 weeks, did some like 5,500 Ks and went to places like Broken Hill, Silverton, Lightning Ridge, Moree, Burke, Griffiths, and stayed away from the big towns. And it's a marvellous opportunity just to get out there and see New South Wales. And when the borders come down, then we'll go a bit further. Very different, very different to getting to Wimp to Warrior.
So, but like, listen, your sense of adventure, has that always been, I guess, a part of you, or has that sort of like come out like later on in life?
No, I think it started really young, to be honest. My grandfather was a guy. My grandfather was an ex-international rugby league player. Yorkshireman. He played in 2 grand finals at Wembley. He toured Australia in 1936. My dad was ex Air Force, and for myself, I guess my adventures really started at the age of 16, 17 when I left home. So I left school at year 10 and joined the British Army. And so I had a couple of tours of duty in some really interesting places. And yeah, it just went on from there. So the Army was the real start for myself.
And with the Army, what was it just that you got out and got to explore the world? Or was there like, I don't know, like do the rugby have like, I guess when you go to uni where they have like sporting teams as well? Like, was there any of that? Because obviously, as I say, like you've got a pretty athletic kind of history. And like where does that come from?
Yeah, well, I think when I was a kid, and I was at school, I enjoyed doing 3 things. I enjoyed sport, I enjoyed footy, and I enjoyed talking to girls. And then I saw this advert on the TV about trying to get people to recruit for the British Army. And I remember saying to my granddad, "Dad, my God, they get paid for that. They're playing, they're training every day. They're playing footy and they're talking to girls." So I literally signed up, and much to my mum and dad's dismay, and I was gone. And it took me around different places around the world, took me into a lot of different situations. I think Wimp to Warriors or cage fighting can be quite daunting. I compare it to sitting in a door of a plane and jumping out. That was you remember when you got in the ring and you realize, oh shit, this is now real. Well, it was exactly the same with parachuting. I did 17 free fall jumps prior to tandem. So this was long before you were strapped to somebody else.
See, I was just going to say, like, I've done both, but I haven't done the free fall. Like, I've done the tandem, and until the Wimp to Warrior experience for me, like, that was, I guess, the highlight for me. Right? It was. I always said, like, I've been a big fan of roller coasters and things like that, and obviously I did the tandem, and I went, okay, roller coasters aren't the same anymore, right? They're just not. But for me, once again, I didn't do the free fall. I did the tandem. But for me, then obviously when the cage fight came along, I think that slightly edged out the jumping out of a plane. But I do understand what you're saying. That, I remember, like going up in this little Cessnock, and the funny thing with it is that you kind of feel like it's actually safer to jump out the plane than come down with the plane, right? Because some of these tandem, things that they take you up in, you really feel like the plane's kind of falling apart, right? So you're kind of like, it's probably the better option. I jump out. But as soon as they open that door and that wind just comes past, it makes quite a bit of a racket, right? And that's, I think, where it really hits you. Like, as you say, you're like, oh, okay, now's the time. Like, and as I said, I was really cool, calm and collected going up, and the guy kept showing me I think the altitude meter and stuff. And he's like, we're still going. But as soon as that door opened, like, I think I've got the video, and my face does turn kind of white, like, so. Whoa.
Mate, this was back in the 70s. So first off, there was no guy strapped to me with an altitude. There was no camera coming in from the corner to show the family. This was. You get up there. It's even the parachutes that you use nowadays. You can guide them. You can land them on a dollar. Those things were like massive, huge circular tablecloths that they went one way, and you could guide them maybe a little bit, but not much. And in terms of jumping out, we had this hairy ass sergeant major who would look at each one of us, and then he'd go, "You in the door," and it was red light, green light, and he would encourage us out. And the encouragement was just bang, and we were gone. I did 17 of those, 17 free fall, and it was so I guess that's where excitement started.
Did you ever have like a bad landing in those 17? Like, did you ever like land either in the water or like up in, when you see those movies and people like stuck up in trees and stuff? Like, have you ever had a bad landing or not really?
I never had a bad landing because as part of our training, we would be jumping off roofs. So, we did 2 or 3 days full on training, and they'd have us on roofs, and we'd learn how to roll because you couldn't just stop when you landed. You had to learn to hit and roll. But I did have one jump where we had, I think it was 16 lines coming down. One of the lines went over the chute. So instead of having a full canopy where you've got, which is grabbing the air, we've got 2 smaller canopies because the line's over. And so obviously I'm coming down a lot quicker than I should be. And I'm instead of pulling the reserve, I'm shaking the harness to try and get this line off, getting closer and closer to the ground. And finally, just as the line's starting to come off, I pull the reserve and they both open up. But I landed fine. It was that was an interesting time. I nearly got put on a charge because the sergeant major said to me when I landed, he said, you should have pulled the reserve earlier. And I'm thinking, well, you don't have time to think about it.
Does the thought ever go through your mind though when you pull in the reserve, like, well, I hope this one works? Because after the reserve, right, you've got nothing else.
No, you don't get time to think like that. It's more the training. It's a little bit like in when you're in a contact situation in the military, your training kicks in, and so you don't get time to think about it. No. Yeah, you know where you're going. You don't have to worry about direction. You just got to make sure you get your shoes open.
And what's some of the kind of like stories from some of your tours, I guess? Like, because I know my best mates. He obviously is in the services and stuff like that, and he's done Afghanistan and East Timor, and he's done a few things. But a lot of the times as well, granted, it's more to do with peacekeeping than actually going out into battlefields. But like, what are some of the adventures I guess you've sort of embarked on?
Oh, So I joined up in 1976, and that was in the middle of the Irish War in Northern Ireland, and it was a civil war, and the British Army was sent over to keep the peace, but in the end, you became a target. But I went over there as a young kid trying to learn about the world, and I learned so much. I learned about people. It didn't matter what religion or what side the people in the streets were. The ones who were good to us, we were good back to, and the ones who didn't like us, we had to defend. So it was an interesting time. And then from there, I went to Central America, and then and also Cyprus. Cyprus was great. Yeah, this was not long after the Turkish-Cyprus ongoing dispute. And we spent time just lazing on beaches and drinking too much, so we actually didn't get any real hassles there. But no, it was an excellent. It was just as a kid. There's a lot of kids nowadays who are really struggling with themselves. If they don't want to go to uni, or if they join uni and then they pull out, and it's a tough time. They're insecure in who they are. They've been told they're perfect. They've been told they're wonderful. Kids nowadays, they've been told that they can be anything they want. And then all of a sudden reality hits and they go, oh my God, this isn't what I've been told. As parents, I think as parents, and including myself, we've lied to our kids for far too many years. We're not honest with them. We tell them they're great. We tell them they can be anything. But life, real world isn't like that. And so we're almost setting them up for failure. Whereas, the military is a great. I only served 3.5 years, but it took me through that tough age from 17 to 21, which is a tough time, men and women.
And I think you're right. Like I saw a TED talk which kind of spoke about obviously kids going off to uni, and the thing that stuck with me there is he said. That back in his day it used to be if you went to uni and you got a degree, you had a job, and if you didn't have a job, it meant that you didn't want one.
Yeah.
Where these days the degrees don't actually guarantee you a job either, no. Right? And he said the reason being is that things are changing so quickly now. So he said you're learning now that by the end of your course, which is 4, 5, whatever plus years, things might have changed so much that really that degree is now obsolete again.
How relevant
right?
Is the course? Yeah.
And so that really struck, as I said, with what you were talking there. And the other thing is we've setting kids up for failure. It's weird because we are now in this landscape where, growing up myself, I was very competitive in the sporting field, and you learnt how to take your wins and also your losses, where now we live in this climate that, everyone gets a participation award, right? And it's because they don't want to upset the kid, which I also understand as well. But as you say, like, I kind of feel like it is setting people up for failure once they hit the real world, because, they get out there and suddenly things don't go their way and they're like, hang on a sec, where's my gold star? Why am I not getting this job? Why am I not getting paid what I'd like to be getting paid? And yeah, it's a tough one because, as I say, like, we live in this period of time where, if you're being real with your kids, you're kind of like looked upon sometimes as a bad parent, I guess, right?
Yeah, I think we need to be more honest. I think we need to be more honest in society. And look, I have to say that one of the challenges my wife and my kids and friends face is if they ask me a question, I'll give them an honest answer. My 2 daughters love going shopping with me. I went shopping with my youngest recently, who's 29.
But the question on that is, do you love going shopping with them?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, mate, seriously. No, I've got to say this to all fathers. One of the highlights of my life was going to formal shopping with my girls 10 years ago. I mean, man, we were in these shops where it's just ladies, the music's blasting, you're surrounded by some of the most beautiful people in the state, and okay, it cost me an arm and a leg, but no, absolutely, I love shopping with the girls. But if they say, what do you think of this? I'll go, oh, come on. Oh, my God. No, and they respect that. And I think we've got to be more honest in society. If you go to the shops now and buy toilet rolls, the marketing line on toilet rolls is soft and gentle. This type is soft and gentle. It's nice on your bum. Well, we are living in a soft and gentle society. And that's why I loved Wimp to Warrior so much, because it's the most honest environment you can get into. Not only getting up, anybody can get up at 4 o'clock every morning to go training, and many do, or anybody can get up at 4 o'clock to go to work. But when you're getting your ass kicked, or when you're getting thumped every minute of every session, or you're knocked to the ground and you've got to get up, and you feel the emotion of not wanting to let yourself down, but you feel the emotion of not wanting to let your friends down, or your peers, I mean, you've been there, not wanting to let your coaches down. That's the honesty. To me, one of the highlights of Wimp to Warrior was it was an honest, totally honest environment, and it's something that's missing out of society. You know, we've got politicians that all they're bothered about is just staying in power. We've got the media who's all they're wanting to do is clickbait, and so they can sell advertising. We've got Facebook, where people have opinions who have no experience. You know, so anyway, I'm starting to sound like a grumpy old man. But
so I mean, you obviously took a different route with the Wimp to Warrior too, because you had your daughter do a series before you.
Yeah.
Right. So was it a thing that you saw her at the finale and you were like, I could do that, or was it more a case, I guess, of you said, come on, let's do this, and have that father-daughter bonding moment, like? Because I know in the book you mentioned a lot that some of your most enjoyable experiences in the series was actually the car rides to and from the Wimp to Warrior and the bond that you had with your daughter. So I guess in that sense, like what was your kind of mentality going into that? Yeah, the motivator, your why even? I don't know.
Yeah, it's to me, it's all about the why. It's so there was actually three. So the first one was, as you quite rightly say, Bev, my eldest, had got a life together. She'd done the series 9. She'd lost 30 odd kilos. She'd also got rid of 72 kilograms of dead weight out of her life. She'd got her life back together, and she was the young woman that we used to know. And so the thought of doing series 10 with her, it was just fantastic. So that was the second, to support her in the second series and do it with her. The second reason why was Anne, my wife, and I had come back from high altitude mountaineering. We'd climbed Kilimanjaro, and as crazy as this sounds, we'd sold our business a couple of years ago, and I was a bit lost. And I had nothing to aim at. For 40 odd years, I'd been chasing targets and chasing goals and chasing money and chasing orders. And all of a sudden, I had a diary that was empty. I had nothing to go for. And I thought, yeah, great timing. 6 weeks, it'll fill the calendar, as crazy as it sounds. I signed up for it. And then there's the third and probably the main reason. And it was a poem by a guy called Dylan Thomas called "Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night." I won't read it except for the 3 lines, and it says, "Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at close of day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light." Fuck it, even now, as I speak the word, I can feel the emotions. I'm 62 years old, and people judge us by our birth certificate. You're 62. You're old. You should be a grey nomad. You shouldn't be doing this at your age. You shouldn't be climbing mountains. Or what about this? Or be careful. Or this could go wrong. Bullshit. I have got about 300 months left before I die at 85. and I want to make the most out of everything I can in that time. I want to burn out. I don't want to fade away. I want to burn out. And Wimp to Warrior was just this great opportunity for me to rage against the dying of the light. The guys I trained with, they were, I'd say I was 61, 62. The average age of the others was 30. Yeah, some were younger, some were older. And I went into that. Not only did I go in with a lot of anger and feeling of betrayal of what had happened through a former member of our family, but I went in with this attitude of, I might be an old bastard, but if you want me, you've got to come and get me. So every time I sparred with these guys, it was like I'm saying, I'm here, but I'm not going to give you an easy knot. I'm not going to give you an easy session. And I think potentially I was probably stupid in the way I approached it in many ways, but that was my attitude. Old age should burn and rave at the close of day. Every session, I wanted to get everything out of it I could.
Well, you do talk about it in your book that it was a big thing for you every week going in was that you wanted to make a statement that you weren't just there to make up the numbers.
Yeah.
Right. You do talk about that a lot. And also I think you mentioned something in your book about dealing with ego and also pride as well. But yeah, like I guess at your age, I'm also assuming that's where the fight name came from, Fossil.
Actually, it was when I was doing CrossFit. So thank goodness I did CrossFit leading up to Wimp to Warrior for 4 or 5 years, because it took me from being an Ironman triathlete to help me transition to get some core strength. I remember once I was in the gym and one of the coaches said, "Come on, Fossil, come on over." And I thought he'd said the Australian word possum. I thought he'd said, "Hey, possum, what are you doing?" And anyway, he said Fossil. So I said, "Yeah, come in." And it stuck. And So I don't mind it. You know, if I get hurt, if my feelings get hurt by half the things I get called, then I won't be leaving the room. So that's where the fight name came from. Oh, that's where the name came from.
Nice. But yeah, so going back to the age thing, obviously, you do also talk a lot about the niggles and the injuries that obviously, because I mean, you're not that 30-year-old anymore. So I know that was a massive thing for you, and you always put on the war face. You wouldn't let the other guys know that you were going through these. But like, how hard was it on the body to go through that period?
I've always tended to train most days. So Ironman did for 14 years, swim, bike, run most days. And your body. So I've always been fit, but this type of training was totally different. And to answer your question, physically, there were times when my body was just so busted. So week 10, we were doing jiu-jitsu. One of the guys landed on my ribs and cracked my ribs, cartilage went, and it was a real mess. I was in a lot of pain, but I couldn't allow myself to not turn up. I couldn't allow myself to sit on the side. I had to adjust. So I took myself away from all the guys that, Mick kept saying, put yourself up against people who were better. Well, that was easy in my case because they were all better than I was. But I took myself to the farthest corner away from the guys who I was potentially going to fight, and kept doing the training, but adapted the training. So if I couldn't sprawl, I'd do something else. After a couple of weeks, I started to get some movement. And I went to Mick Pauly's, the sports shop, and bought a cricketer's pad. You know the pad that cricketers wear on their thigh? Strapped that, got a big thick sponge, a car wash sponge, stuck that under the pad. I was back on the mats and life was grand. We all got cut. I've got old man skin, it's a good job I don't have that blood disorder where you keep bleeding. Otherwise I'd have bled out years ago. Week 16, we were sparring, and I kicked one of the guys and literally ripped the nail out. I fractured my big toe and ripped the nail out, not at the end, sorry, of my toe, not the end, but at the root. And that was, and even now, nearly a year later, I still can't bend the toe as much. The nail's grown back, but that was a mess. And then lots of other things. But that's part of the game. That's the difference between this sport.
So let me ask you this though: with a sport like they call it a young man's sport, and there's a lot of reasons behind that. Obviously, when you're younger, you're more athletic, you're quicker, your reaction time's a bit better. Do you feel though you had any advantages during that series? And I guess I'll just throw it out there. People sometimes talk about old man strength, right? And not just physically, but I think mentally as well.
I think mentally, I had a big advantage over. I think not over everybody, but I think so because of my age, because of the things I'd done in my life. Ironman and a 15 hours, 50 Ironman can be a very, very lonely and mentally demanding place to be towards the end. So yeah, I think I had a lot of resilience that I was able to pull on when I started to get busted up. I used to get up so the training started at 5:15, and you've been there, we'd do like 5-10 minutes warm up. I would have to get up at 4 a.m. to do my own warm up at home. So I'd then get to the gym at 5 to do an extra warm up. So I would warm up for the warm up before the official warm. And then we'd do the session, and then straight after the session, Bev and I would call in at the Coloroy swimming pool. This was middle of winter; the water was freezing, so I'd get in the water to make sure I could, hopefully get the body ready for the day after.
Well, it's the ice bath, right?
It's the ice bath.
Ice bath.
Absolutely, and man, it worked. So yeah, part of it was it was about I think an advantage I did have is. This wasn't the first time I'd been punched in the face, and so or physically put myself and mentally under pressure. So I think that was an advantage.
I always say that kind of comes with life, because when you're young, you're strong, you're fit, you're all this, but you've never, I guess, dealt with hardship. And through life, and I'm talking about all walks of life, there's always setbacks. And I think, as you get older, you just mentally, as you say, you're more resilient. Yeah. Like it's just a natural thing. So and I think even in my case, I mean, I'm not at that age, but like I was eight years older than my opponent, and I think that was the case as well. Was I was losing, but I wasn't willing to give up, and it was because I'm like, I've already hit rock bottom a few times in life, and what's the worst that can happen? Like you kind of push on. Where a lot of younger people, like, they will give up a lot quicker, and it's just because they're not used to that that kind of situation where they kind of feel like their back's up against the wall. And once again, going back to this whole thing with the way we set these kids up, it's
Well, we're in the information area, so everybody knows everything about everything, because if I ask you a question you don't know, we don't think anymore. We go to Google, or call Siri or somebody. But we're not experiencing life like we used to do. I read years and years and years ago a line in a book that said it's better to travel 1,000 miles than it is to read 1,000 books, and I still live that now. It's better to experience it. I'm not a smart guy. I left school at year 10. But now, because I've built businesses, because I've coached and trained other companies for the last 20 odd years, I've started and built and sold multiple businesses. That's the experience that you can't learn through study. You have to experience to know truly what the feeling is. What's that film with Good Will Hunting? There's a great line in there when he's talking to those young guys, and he's saying, you read books on love, but you've never experienced it. You've read books about Russia, but you've never been there. It's that type of thing. And So that was probably one of the biggest advantages I did have at my age, is that when I got put down or when I got hurt, or I was able to be flexible and manufacture a different approach to whatever the situation was or is.
Was there ever a time though that you kind of felt like you bit off more than you could chew, like going on those 6 months? I mean, look, we all go through roller coasters. I've always said it's a roller coaster experience. You have your good days, your bad days. But was there a time, just looking around the room as well and just going, listen? As I said, I was 8 years older, but like your opponent was 20 years younger, right? Yeah. So just looking around the room, were you like kind of like, because you also talk, as I said, about not just partaking, not making up the numbers, like, but was there any point that you just like, I shouldn't be here? Was that thought ever there?
Not I shouldn't be there, not I didn't deserve to be there or had any right to be there.
But why did I sign up?
No, I never questioned that. No, I was always clear on that because of Bev and Dylan Thomas. But there were times, especially when, so I went into it really fit. So I believe now, as I look back, I was strong, I was healthy, I was fit. And a lot of the guys and ladies who joined weren't as fit as myself when I joined or when we started. So for the first few weeks, I was doing okay. I didn't need to lose much weight. I wasn't heavy. I was strong. I was healthy. But over the time, I didn't increase as much, whereas the other guys did. And then towards halfway and beyond, the guys were getting fitter and their natural strength was starting to come through. And my aggression, or my fitness and my aggression, I was lacking in areas of technique in areas of technique. So I never, there was only really 2 times where I thought about pulling out. The first one was totally out of my control. And the first one, and it wasn't when I was busted. It wasn't when I was injured. The first time was I went through most of the program almost waiting for a tap on the shoulder from one of the coaches. And I was scared of that. I was scared of one of the coaches saying, mate, seriously, well done what you've done. But yeah, we don't want to continue. And that was a bigger driver. So because of that fear is a bigger motivator than anything. Because of the fear of being deselected almost, to use a military term, I trained harder and more aggressively. The other time, which was under my control, was late on in the series. And I'd heard a whisper that somebody was questioning if I actually should go through and fight because of my age. And when I heard this, I was fuming. So the person hadn't actually seen me train. They hadn't been to any of the sessions, or they'd heard anecdotally. And it was the question, do we want somebody this age fighting? What happens if? And there was the phrase, maybe an exhibition bout could be arranged. And I hit the roof. There's no way I was going to do an exhibition bout with somebody who was obviously a lot more talented, a lot more skilled, who could help me through the experience. I would rather, and I made it abundantly clear that I wasn't into an exhibition bout. I wanted to get into that ring and into the arena and see where it went. It wasn't about, to be honest, it wasn't about winning or losing. It was about just finishing the job.
No, and the reason I ask is, once again, you mentioned something in your book, and this is what I say about looking around the room. When you'd be warming up, there's a section in there where you're talking about that you'd be shadow boxing people. But as soon as that person would turn around, you would turn away. So you would shadow box them behind their back, but as soon as they would turn around, you would be like, oh, I'll shadow box over here kind of thing.
Yeah. So you've got 30, 40 people in the gym, and there'd be sessions where you'd have to shadow box. So I was visualizing, instead of just shadowboxing against a dot on the wall or this fictitious person, I was visualizing. So if you were standing next to me and you were facing away doing your shadowboxing, I'd be standing, imagining through your height or your size, I'd be visualizing my sparring against you. But obviously I didn't want you to know I was doing that, because I didn't know if I was going to fight you or not. So as you started to move and turn, I'd then shift somewhere else. And I was constantly visualizing. As we'd run around the gym in the morning to get this part of the warm-up, and I'd be watching the guys, and I'd be thinking, who is it? Is it you? Is it you? Is it you? And I'd be looking them in the eye, and I'm looking for a gap. I'm looking for a flaw. I kept notes on every one of the guys. This didn't come out until afterwards, actually. But I kept notes on every one of the guys who I was up against. I kept notes on their injuries, and I kept notes on their strengths, because I didn't know. We don't know who we're fighting against. Obviously, the guys who were half my size or twice my size, I knew I wasn't up against them, but I kept notes on them, because just in case I was going to fight with them, I needed to have some type of insight. And yes, as we warm up, I'd look at them. I'd be watching them. In the moves in the training, and trying to think, right, if I'm up against you, what am I going to do?
It's funny, and I think that's an age thing as well, right? Because I kind of did the same in a sense, more so when I found out who my opponent was, because I was just like, damn, he's younger, he's quicker, he was doing these cartwheel kicks and stuff, and I'm like, oh man, I don't know. And I was like, but you know what? He's sat quite a few sessions on the sideline, right? For numerous reasons. He had an accident where he cut his hand open and stuff like that. But the one thing that I said I was going to get him on was my cardio.
Yeah.
And so I literally went between 5 to 10K a day, right? Every day. And my whole game plan was revolved around that. It was like, literally, I'm going to tire him out. And once he's tired, that's when I can start doing something. Like I knew skill-wise, everything, I knew he was above me. Yeah. But I was just like, that was the one kind of thing. Another interesting thing though, with the book, did you go into the series going, I'm going to write a book by the end of this?
No.
Or did you just take a journal and then by the end you went, well, I've got all this stuff now, I might as well put in the book. And once again, like I don't want to like keep plugging the age thing, but I was like, that's really interesting, because I think the youth of today, they don't do journals no more, right? No, like that is really something that
but they do it on Facebook.
Yeah, I guess it's a little different though, or Instagram stories or something like that. But they don't actually write things down anymore.
Correct.
To obviously then, because I mean, when you go through the book, you really do break it down pretty much week by week. So it really is like a diary journal.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it was. So I never had the intention of writing a book about my experience. It's just that as I got to the end of it, and I had 21 weeks of the experience, the highs and the lows, and I wrote from an emotional perspective. Not it's. I think I've put at the beginning of it. If anybody's reading this to learn how to fight, you've got the wrong book. They'll learn nothing. They'll learn nothing from my book about the techniques of MMA. But it was a very personal journey, and how I went through it, because it was such a great experience.
And when we talk about great experiences, how does it quantify in regards to like an Ironman? Like, you know, like the challenges, the outcome, like, because I know Ironman is another thing. And the thing that I guess amazes me with your story as well is the amount of Ironmans you've done. Because I know a few people that have done an Ironman, but they'll do 2, 3. You've done 23. Like it's kind of like, I guess it's like an addiction to you. I don't know. But like, obviously the Ironman, when it comes to triathlons and stuff like that, is one of the pinnacles, I guess, or
it's the pinnacle.
It is the pinnacle.
So the Hawaii Ironman is a bit like the Olympics. It's invitation only. You have to qualify. Well, actually, first off, you have to be able to do the distance. It's a 3.8 kilometer swim. It's a 180 kilometer bike race immediately after the swim. Excuse me. And then you get off the bike and you run a 42 kilometer marathon. And you've got to do that in under 17 hours. So it's interesting how it came about, because I'd finished playing footy. We'd emigrated to Australia, and I was running a bit. And I watched Wide World of Sport, Kenny Sutcliffe, Saturday afternoon. And it had the Ironman on from Hawaii. And there were people crawling across the line. There were some amazing stories of resilience and guts. And I remember I was watching this. I had tears running down my face. I was just so captivated by it. And I said to my wife, Anne, I said, I'm going to do that. She said, what, an Ironman? I said, no, I'm going to qualify for Kona. I'm going to qualify for the Hawaii Ironman, the World Championships. Now, this was back in 98. I was 40. At the time, in 98, I was 40, so I was born 58. And I put a plan together. I got a coach. I changed my lifestyle. I realized, so you got to try, I was training maybe 16 hours a week, swim, bike, run, and to do my first Ironman. And I realized I couldn't commit enough time to training if I was working for somebody else. So at the time, I was working in the city, had a big job, big wage, running a business, and I realized I couldn't train if I'd sold my soul for the money to somebody else. So I resigned and set up my own company. And one of the things I'm really committed to, which I totally believe in, is public accountability. A lot of people in life have a goal, but they don't want to share it. I want to lose 10 kilograms. Oh yeah, but I'm not going to tell anybody, because if I only lose 5 kilograms, they'll think I've failed. Or I want to run a marathon, but I won't tell anybody, because if I only run a half marathon, they'll think I've failed. And so I'm totally opposite against that. I'm big on public accountability. I posted every day. I posted every week on Facebook and LinkedIn about my Wimp to Warrior journey. I called my company Kona. That's where the Hawaii Ironman is run every year. So every time I give somebody a business card, every time I did a presentation with and the logo was prominent, every time somebody asked, what does Kona stand for? It reinforced my passion, my goal to qualify, to train, to get up early, to manage my life in such a way where I could still spend time on my business, with my family, and my training. And so it became not just a passion, became a way of life. And yeah, I'm huge on public accountability. If you want to make a difference in your life, tell people, because they'll hold you accountable. You tell people about what you're doing with Wimp to Warrior, and you'd have the people who mean a lot to you, or the people who make a difference in your life will be the ones saying, how you going, mate? Keep going. Keep doing it. Proud of you. The ones who don't, the ones who say, oh, but what about if, and what about the failures you could have? Fuck them off. You don't need them in your life.
But it's amazing too, because a lot of people, I don't know, when I did my series, a lot of people kind of kept silent about it. And it wasn't until the finale that, like, I thought, I might get rid of 10 tickets is what I honestly thought. And I think I had close to 70, 80. And I was like, I didn't even realize you guys were watching. Yeah. Right. So, and then they started coming in about like, oh, your journey's been so inspiring and this and that. But as I said, they were kind of like silent followers. But yeah, it's kind of crazy. But did you go straight to Hawaii, or did you do other Ironman?
No, you can't. No, you can't go straight to Hawaii. So first off, you've got to be able to do a triathlon. So I started at Kernel, which was a 250-meter swim, a 20K bike ride, and a 5K run. I mean, I wouldn't even do that in training now. But I got out of the water. I thought I was going to drown. Yeah, I'm a pom, for God's sake. I mean, poms can't swim. But I survived that. I was hooked. And then I went to Penrith and did the Penrith Enticer, which was And then I did an Olympic distance, which is 1.5 Ks, 40K bike, and 10K run. And yeah, I did a few of those. So I was kept building the distances up, training harder. Then I got picked for Australia. As amazing as it sounds, I got picked for Australia in '99 to go race in Canada in the World Championships, but Olympic distance. Then I built on that, got a coach who knocked off 20 minutes off my swim time, and I improved my bike and run. Then I did a half Ironman. And I remember I did my first half Ironman at Foster, and I crossed the finish line, and I still remember today. I crossed the finish line, and I staggered to a wheelie bin, and I leant up on this wheelie bin and sobbed because I was so bereft of energy. I was so knackered physically, and I just could not comprehend that was only a half. And yet that was September. In the March, I'd entered the New Zealand Ironman, full Ironman. And I had no idea how I was going to be able to do double the distance that I'd only just survived. But you know what, crazy thing with Ironman is every race you finish, you go, that's it, I'm done. And then come Monday, you've had a sleep, you've had a feed, and you're going, right, what do I need to do differently? So I did 23 in the end, and Hawaii was my 21st. 12 years it took me to get there.
And is there like components of it that's harder than others? Like, do you think that the swim's harder than the run, or?
It depends on your background. So I've always been able to run. My swimming was diabolical. Yeah, my first swim over the 3.8 Ks took me 92 minutes, I think. I think I got it down with the coach. I got it down to like 69, I think was my best swim over time. Some people are good on the bikes, on the cycling. I had a running background. But yeah, it's like MMA. You could be a great boxer, but if you can't do groundwork, you might struggle. And it's the same in Ironman triathlon.
But what is it that goes through your mind? Because say like your 90-minute swim or whatever, and you said originally the full Ironman takes how long?
So you have 17 hours.
17 hours?
And my best time was 11:32, but my first Ironman took me 15 hours 52. I thought I was going to die. Yeah, it was dark. All the crowds had gone. It was dark. It was wet. It was horrendous. And you're feeling sick. You can't eat because your body's just shutting down. But I was going to Hawaii. I was.
But so what?
I was not going to pull out. I wasn't going to finish. I was going to finish it. And
but what's going through your mind? Because obviously in MMA, for instance, right, it's a lot shorter. Like obviously we're talking about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever it is.
Yeah. And
I think a lot of it is reaction based because you don't know what's coming at you, right?
Yeah.
But like when you're going for these long swims or these long runs, what kind of things are going through your mind? Are you more about like what's at hand? Like for instance, swimming, are you like just one more stroke, or do you try to, I guess, take yourself away so you're forgetting that you're stroking? Like it's same with the run. Like, are you thinking about your, I guess, a happy place, or are you just like just another kilometer? We just got to do another kilometer.
It's a great question, Dennis, actually, because if you wanted to go for a 5K run, most people can do a 5K run, and you put your gear on. You don't really warm up that much. Maybe swing your leg a couple of times, but then you go.
Except if you're 62, then you warm up before the warm up.
Not for 5Ks. I might be old. I'm not that old. But no, actually, yeah, you're probably right. I do. But anyway, so if you're doing a 5K run or whatever, or you're going to go down to your local gym and throw some weights around, you don't really have to think about it too much. If you're going to cycle 180 kilometers, or we used to cycle 150, 160 in training on a Saturday morning, your brain is constantly going. Same with the run, because you're thinking, so 150 Ks, you may be out 5 or 6 hours. You're thinking, right, food. Your body can hold 2 hours of food or 2 hours of energy. Something, right, I need to eat. When did I eat last? Then you're thinking about cars, potholes, direction, cadence. So your brain's actually going all the time, because A, you've got to stay on the bike. B, you got to keep eating, and hydration. That's a big one. Over a 15-hour race, you need to be able to keep the food going in. You need to be able to train yourself to eat and drink while you're on the run. So there's a lot of. I found I was alert a lot of the time when I was training. Yeah, because you had to keep thinking about what's coming up next. It's a bit like in business. You don't just react in business. You've got to be thinking about what's the next stage. If this happens, what are the consequences? What are the opportunities? What do I need to do next?
But do you ever go loopy? Like, do you ever get to a point then you're like, I wonder if I turn the oven off at home? Like, I'm just saying, like, is there a point after like 10 hours that your mind just, goes into some sort of directions and you kind of have to reel yourself back in?
Yeah, that's interesting. A little bit. I didn't used to run I'd never cycled with headphones, with music, because it's dangerous. But I didn't always run with music because it gave me time to think of not only my running and my style and my cadence, but also if I had a problem at work or I needed to, it gave me time to think. There was a time I ran across, I did the Marathon des Sables. So back in 2011, it's a 250 kilometer run across the Sahara Desert. Self-sufficient, so you carry a pack with everything you need for 7 days. And the only thing they give you is water every day, every morning, and a helicopter out if you're going to die. You've got to carry snake bite kit, you've got to carry your clothing, you've got to carry 7 days of food, so the dehydrated packs, etc. Anyway, there was a day, I think it was day 4, and the day was an 84-kilometer run. And through the Sahara, it was nearly 50 degrees. And I remember there was a time where I was dehydrated, and my brain was starting to wander off, and that was a strange time. But apart from that, no, I try and keep thinking about what I'm doing, because if your form goes, then the whole thing can fall over.
And thinking about what you're doing, do you break it down into little chunks? Like, and what I mean by that, like, do you go, all right, I've got 42 kilometers to run, or do you just go, I've got 5, and then once you hit that 5, you go another 5, and then another? Like, do you like to break it down?
Exactly that. Yeah. There's an old saying: the best way to eat an elephant, one bite at a time. It's the same in sales. It's the same in business. There's your clear objective, but what's the bite-sized chunk I need to focus on today? So if I'm going for a cycle ride, I'm going to do hills, I'm going to do speed work, I'm going to do a recovery ride. What's my position I'm going to use? If I'm going for a run, same thing. I break everything I do down into daily chunks, and that's the focus for the day.
And in regards to pace, how did you handle that? Was it more that you kind of tried to set your own pace, or was there, like once it kicks off, did you try to keep up with the person in front of you and let them set the pace? Or especially, I guess, I mean, at 23, I guess you'd have your own strategies, but like on your first one, what was your kind of mentality going? Was it just about keeping up with the person in front of you, or how does that all work?
I've never been worried about everybody else. Even in everything I do, I don't worry about what the others are doing. I worry about what I'm doing, what I need to do. Again, pace, cadence, hydration, food. I'm always thinking about what do I need to do. I
guess what I'm asking though is like, being your first event, like, and that's why I say on your 23 event, I assume you just do what you're wanting to do. Yeah. With the first one, I don't know, I would probably be like, I'll try to keep up with him, not because I'm trying to be competitive and keep up with him, but I'm like, well, I'm hoping he's done an Ironman before, so therefore he knows what kind of pace we need. Because I find a lot of people when they take a competitive task like that, you'll sometimes see like the guys when they do their first event, they'll run out right at the beginning. Yeah. But then they'll realize like 10Ks later, like, oh, this is hard, and they'll start to drop back. Right. And that's, I guess, where I'm coming from is the fact that, I mean, as you say, you've done marathons and triathlons leading up to the event, but you know, you probably didn't know what was ahead. I mean, you kind of did, but you didn't because you hadn't done it yet. Like, and I'm specifically talking about your very first Ironman. Like, so afterwards it becomes easier.
Yeah. So, well, it never comes easier, but you just become a bit more aware. But yeah, it was a case of my first one was in New Zealand at Lake Taupo, and you see the turnaround buoy. So you go 1K back. So there's you, and so I could see the turnaround buoy. So my whole focus was I've got to get to that first turnaround. Then you get to the second turnaround, and that's the focus. On the bicycle, there's an aid station where you can replenish your water bottles every 20 kilometers. So I will break it down. Right, what do I need to do to get to the next next aid station? On the run. In an Ironman, you have an aid station every 2Ks. So what do I need to do to get to that next aid station? I never worried about anybody. With Ironman, there's up to 2,000 people in the water at the same time, all wearing the same gear. You don't know who can swim, who can't swim. And it's interesting, for a lot of people, the worst part of an Ironman is the actual swim, because you're all in the water. The cannon goes, and you're off. And literally, there's people swimming over you, getting kicked in the face. You're getting people swimming and belting you in the back of the head. And for some, it can be quite daunting. But it's part of the experience. And then if you're swimming in the ocean, if you're doing like an ocean swimming, like WA, Bustleton, we had one year where the waves were rolling. It was an amazing time. Yeah, I just break everything down. It's happened in Wimp to Warrior. You've been through the Wimp to Warrior program. The guys who put the program together on a day, they knew what they wanted every week. But every day we'd focus on a certain part of it. And they'd never tell us what was coming the day after, because they wanted us to focus on the here and now. If you do this well, then you'll be in a better position for tomorrow. I run corporate sales training programs and sales coaching, and I'm constantly saying to people in business, don't worry about your annual target. Don't worry about your monthly target. What's your target for this week? And then what's the activity you need to put in? How many proposals? How many conversations? How many meetings? And just focus on the activity, because I'm a firm believer in the old adage, quality activity drives results. Everything else, and often the results out of your control. So just focus on the activity.
So we'll go last one on the Ironman, open ocean swim.
Yeah.
Did you ever feel like you were shark bait?
No.
I mean, it's a long swim. Once again, you've got a lot of things going through. And it's just me, like, I've never been a big ocean guy. And it's purely because every time I go in the water, I honestly, the first thing, I can hear the Jaws theme. I can hear the Jaws theme slowly in my head. Dun-dun, dun-dun.
So this is what I'm about to say, I think some of your listeners will think I'm not right in the head. So I live in Narrabeen, so we're on the coast, and I swim some mornings with a group and down at Mona Vale. And there are times where I'm out in the ocean, where you can't see anybody else, and I intentionally start to think about sharks. Intentionally. Yeah, it's a little 1%er. And I keep swimming, and then I start to make myself, I know this sounds stupid, but it's gospel truth. I then make myself look at any shadows or anything. It could be a part of the reef, or it could be part of some fungi or whatever, algae on the ground. But I make myself think, what's that? What's behind me? So I get myself into such a state. I've got to keep paddling, keep swimming. I get myself into such a state of, oh my God, my heart rate's up. I then make myself calm myself down while I'm still swimming. And it's even worse when the ocean's rolling, but I do it intentionally. I don't know why. I don't know why. Maybe it's a personal test. But I do that. I've done that on several occasions. It's about being in control of your own emotions. I'm a firm believer in the 1%ers in life. Yeah, I mentioned it previously. With Wimp to Warrior, the little 1%ers. I would after every shower I'd get the hot water on to ease out the aches and the pains. I'd always finish my shower with a freezing cold shower. Even now, still do. It's a little 1%er. Now, would it make a difference? Probably not, but it made a difference to me mentally because it made me make that decision to have a cold shower, to be uncomfortable. So I literally try and put myself into positions where I'm uncomfortable. Nobody else knows what's going on. Nobody else knows what I'm doing, but I know. And it's often the 1%ers that make a big difference.
I kind of do that sometimes too, where I go from hot to cold to hot to cold, but I'll do it multiple times in the shower. But I kind of more took it from when growing up in New Zealand, they had the hot and the cold pools, and you jump from one to the other, and apparently it's meant to be good for you. I don't know how much of that is actually true, but
for mental. More of a mental challenge.
Yeah, I do like the woo and then hot and then woo and then hot. But look, we'll start to dial it back, but I just want to finish off obviously on your finale night. How was that experience? And I guess I ask more so because you had your daughter fight on the same card. So backstage warming up, did she go first or second?
So I fought fifth and she fought eighth.
Okay.
So she was fight 8.
So what was more nerve-wracking? Was it preparing yourself for your battle? And once again, were you able to tune out and go, okay, we've both done this course together, but now I need to concentrate on my task, she needs to concentrate? Or was in the back of your mind constantly as well, yes, she's getting ready also?
The latter. I was able to tune out of what Bev was doing and what everybody else was doing. It's interesting, prior to that, in the training itself, I was always uncomfortable sparring with Bev. Yeah, even though she'd done the program before and she was so much better in so many ways at MMA. But I always try and stay away from her. I mean, she's one of the 3 loves of my life. How can I hit my daughter? And I remember there was this time where we were sparring, we kept swapping partners, and all of a sudden we got the gloves up and she's looking like Ronda Rousey. She's got this face on and she's, and then all of a sudden we're in front of each other and I get this warmth glow of pride running through me, and I'm looking at her through the gloves and my mind wanders as she goes,
I was going to say, she socked you one.
Smacked me right in the nose. I went, after that, you can do your own thing. So come fight night, it was a great night for us all because we not only just the euphoria of it, but doing the being on the same fight card with her was fantastic. Yeah, it was a really proud moment for both of us to share it, and at the end of it, she got in the cage with me. I feel really guilty actually, so because it was totally on my control. But Alan, who I fought, Alan Lux, he put me down in the second round. He won. He deserved it. He was better throughout the event. Throughout the fight night, and he deserved the win. So while the commentator's talking to Alan, congratulating him, Bev's got in. She and I are hugging, and we're quite emotional. It was just a beautiful, beautiful moment to share it with her. Then she's then 3 fights later, she has to then prepare for her own fight, and she went 2 and she's now 2-0, so she did really well.
And have you spoken to her? Was it harder the second time around for her because you were on the card? Because as you say, you did have that emotional, the first time she just had obviously her task at hand, and then the second time, obviously, and to the point you said you lost. I mean, it wasn't like you got seriously hurt or anything, but there was a lot of emotions there. So has she spoken to you about that? Was it actually harder for her the second time around purely because of that extra emotional kind of roller coaster?
We've spoken, and I don't believe it was. And look, you need to ask her that. Maybe I'm misreading it, but no, I think we were able to help each other through it. There were times where you've been there. There were times where with Wimp Warrior, you are your lowest ebb, and we were able on the drive home. We were able to help each other through it, and we were able to share it and share the experience. So no, I think it possibly even helped to get through, but she didn't need me to get through. You know, she's tough. She enjoys it. She turned her life around, and she didn't need me to get through. She would have done it by herself even without me. So, it was a great experience, and I would recommend to any father, do it with your son, do it with your daughter. Just do it.
Okay, and on that, my final one, will we be seeing you on the mats again? Do you think you will partake in another series?
I wouldn't. I haven't got a why. I don't have a why. So my body will fix. Even now, it's still busted. My Frozer showed back in Feb, and I couldn't get it above I couldn't get it above there. That's now starting to free up. So physically, I could probably get myself to it involved. I could do it, but mentally, I don't have the why. I just don't have the why to actually do the 21 week. Could I do a 12 weeker? I don't know. But for something like that, you need a reason. Kona was my reason for Ironman. Keep going, keep training, because I was passionate about it. With Wimp Warrior, don't know. However, every now and again, I get this little voice in the back of my head that goes, maybe.
Well, and that's the case. They always say never, right? Yeah. Like there's I always say
you're a long time retired.
It's a game of opportunity, and sometimes if the right opportunity came along, you even though you said no 3 months ago, it may change. And I mean that is life.
It's all about the why. But if Dana wants to give me a call and put me up against Conor McGregor, I don't mind. I'll go easy on him.
I hear boxing pays better. Mayweather for 100 mil. There we go.
Yeah, I do it for 50.
Well, there you go. But so put Wimp Warrior aside. And I know at the beginning you were saying you're doing your little adventures with the camper van RV, or but like, what have you got any sort of goals in the foreseeable future?
Yeah.
Like what's the next kind of
so the camper van is a space filler. It's because we can't do anything else, and so I didn't want to stay at home. So it's a nice space filler to see this great country. Somebody asked me last week, if I could be anywhere in the world doing anything I wanted, what would it be? And I said I would like to be on the end of a rope at high altitude, attempting to climb a mountain that was beyond my capability. I would like to be in either Nepal or South America, really trying to go high. I had this goal about 2 years ago of being 60 at 6,000 meters. And I climbed a couple of mountains. One was 5,800, one was 5,895. And so I still haven't cracked that 6,000. If I get that, then maybe 7,000, then we'll see. But that's the goal. But obviously at the moment, we can't. I've just got to stay fit and healthy and alive long enough to get back to the mountains. The great thing of the mountain climbing is I do it with I do it with my wife. Yeah, it's just a phenomenal experience. We've had a couple of problems doing that. There was once where we had to get helicoptered off a mountain in Nepal 2 years ago, where things went really wrong, and because of altitude sickness. And we got home, we reassessed, put a new plan together, and went back. But that's the goal.
Speaking of the wife, has she always been supportive, or has there been ideas of yours that she's just, shake shake her head and just said, listen,
I learned.
I love you.
Yeah, I learned.
But it's time to tone it down.
Yeah, I learned years ago never to talk on her behalf. Anne and I are total opposites. We've been together for 42 years. We're total opposites.
Opposites attract.
And in this case, it certainly has. Yeah, I'm a lucky guy.
Keeps life interesting.
Even though I tell her every day how lucky she is, the reality is that I'm the lucky one. And so mountaineering is great because we can do it together. And I think she did question Wimp to Warrior, but was totally supportive of when we signed up for it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Right, cool.
Well, look, I am going to leave it there.
Yep.
Obviously, for people that want to, try their hand at Wimp to Warrior and jump in the cage, they, go to wimptowarrior.com. But for people that want to, read a little about your experience with the Do Not Go Gentle, what's the kind of best way for people, A, to get in touch with you, and two, I guess, even get a copy of the book?
Yeah, contact me either obviously through the Blue Corner or through my LinkedIn profile or Facebook, or call me 0425 200 883. So yeah, happy to send them out, and looking forward to the next adventure, whatever it may be.
Well, I think the next adventure was right there. I would never, ever in a million years put my phone number up for everyone to hear and listen to. But look, I really do appreciate your time. It's one of those things that when I originally approached you, you said, no one will want to listen to my story. But I actually think you do have a really good story that I think a lot of people will take a lot from. But yeah, I do appreciate your time. When you go on your next adventure, whatever that may be, whether it be climbing mountains or whatnot, hopefully I'll be able to get you in afterwards. Maybe there'll be another book involved. I have no idea. But until then, we're going to finish it up. Thanks again.
I'm a one.